you look at the map of the world today, what do we see? We see perfect borders demarcating all countries. Economically and politically, we have well-defined trade pacts within each country. Also, each country has a distinct ethnicity. This means that most of the citizens have a common language and religion. But this peace and order did not exist from the beginning. What we see today is a result of massive political, economical and cultural movements that swept the world from mid-18th century to the 19th century. And most of these movements were not peaceful. Let's take a look at what happened in Europe during this time. Let us start by understanding the term nationalism and what it stood for. And to understand this better, we shall travel back in time to the 19th century Europe. This was the time when the new ideology of nationalism had began capturing the imagination of people across Europe. Until this time, Europe had multinational dynastic empires, but the force of the nationalistic movement crumbled these empires and nation states came into existence. So what are nation states? A nation state is that in which a majority of its citizens and their rulers have a sense of common identity and shared history. And across the land of Europe, various groups of common people and their leaders identified with the commonness among them and united. They struggled against the existing rulers and established different nation states. In a lecture delivered at the University of Sorbonne in 1882, the French philosopher Ernest Renan outlined his understanding of what makes a nation. The lecture was subsequently published as a famous essay entitled Qu'est-ce que c'est nation, which means what is a nation. But the idea of nationalism had begun taking shape in the minds of the people while before the movement actually began. In fact, in 1848, the year after the movement started, Frédéric Soriot, a French artist, painted a series of 4 paintings that depicted his dream of a world made up of democratic and social republics, as he called them. His paintings showed men and women of all ages and social classes marching in a long train and offering homage to the Statue of Liberty as they passed by. Make no mistake, the Statue of Liberty that we see in the USA today was gifted by France much later. As we all know, the Statue of Liberty is a female figure that bears the torch of enlightenment in one hand and the Charter of the Rights of Man in the other hand. The Statue of Liberty shown in this painting was France's way of depicting liberty post the French Revolution. The painting showed the people of the world coming together to form distinct nations. Nations that could be identified by their flags and national costumes. Leading to the procession past the Statue of Liberty were the United States and the Switzerland, which by this time were already nation states. France was indefiable by the revolutionary tricolor. She was followed by the Germans who wore the black, red and golden flags. An interesting thing to note here is that during this time, when Soriot created this image, the German people did not yet exist as a united nation. The flag they carry is an expression of liberal hopes in 1848 to unify the numerous German-speaking principalities into a nation state under a democratic constitution. Following the Germans were the people of Austria, the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, Lombardy, Poland, England, Ireland, Hungary and Russia. From the heavens above, Christ, saint and angels gazed upon the scene and blessed them. The artist has used this to symbolize fraternity among the nations of the world. So what aspects of Europe led people like Soriot to envision such a nation states? Before nationalism, countries in Europe had existed as nation, but there was no feeling of oneness amongst its citizens. Germany, Italy and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, duchies and cantons whose rulers had their autonomous territories. Eastern and Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies. Within their territories lived diverse people. They did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or common culture. They even spoke different languages and belonged to different ethnic groups. The Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria-Hungary, for example, was a patchwork of many different regions and people. It included the Alpine regions of Tyrol, Austria and Sudetenland, as well as Bohemia, where the aristocracy was predominantly German-speaking. It also included the Italian-speaking provinces of Lombardy and Venetia. In Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar, while the other half spoke a variety of dialects. In Galicia, the aristocracy spoke Polish. Besides these three dominant groups, there were groups of peasants: Bohemians and Slovaks to the north, Slovenes in Carniola, Croats to the south, and Romans to the east of Transylvania. The only thing that bound these diverse groups together was their alliance to one emperor. With all these differences, we can only imagine how difficult it must have been to promote a sense of political unity. But the revolutionaries strove to bring in the idea of nation-state. These modern states were envisioned as having a centralized power that exercised sovereign control over a clearly defined territory. And with the nationalism movement, as nation-states came together, the majority of the citizens, together with its rulers, came to develop a sense of common identity and shared history.